is a Brothers Grimm story called Sweetheart Roland, and it is one of the darker of the Brothers Grimm stories, certainly at the beginning. But it does have a lovely ending. So everyone who is listening to this, everyone, you need to start practicing your line, because when we get to the end of the story, you will have that essential fairy tale line to say. You'll know when we get there. A story which begins with a witch who has a magic wand and two daughters. One daughter who was her own flesh and blood, and one daughter who was a stepdaughter. Now, the stepdaughter is the heroine of our tale. She is beautiful and kind. And she had made herself a lovely apron. And she had embroidered flowers on the apron. So it was really quite beautiful. She had lots of lovely things that she had made. And the stepsister went to her mother, the witch, and said how much she wanted the beautiful apron with the flowers embroidered on it. And her mother said, It is time for your stepsister to leave, so you may have everything that she owns. When you go to bed tonight, make sure that you sleep on the side of the bed closest to the wall. Now, our fair maiden was standing in the shadows and heard this. And so, when she went to bed that night, once her stepsister had fallen asleep, she gently rolled her so that she was on the edge of the bed closest to the door. And then our fair maiden climbed into the bed herself and made sure that she slept close to the wall. And she wasn't surprised to hear the door open and her stepmother walk in with the axe, and with one swift blow she cut off the head of the maiden sleeping on the edge of the bed closest to the door, believing this was her stepdaughter, but really it was her own daughter. So, after dawn, our fair maiden took 3 drops of blood from her stepsister, dropped one on the bedroom floor, one on the stairs, and one in the kitchen. Then she left the cottage and went to the house of her sweetheart Roland. This is a story called Sweetheart Roland, taking with her the witch's magic wand. So when the witch got up that morning, she called to her daughter, said, "Where are you?" And the drop of blood that the maiden had left in the kitchen answered, "Mother, I am here. I am in the kitchen making breakfast." And then the drop of blood that was on the stairs called out, "Mother, I am here. I am on the stairs." And then the witch went into the bedroom, and the drop of blood that had been left on the bedroom floor answered, "Mother, I am here. I am still sleeping." There are lots of stories where heads carry on talking, not usually drops of blood. So, of course, the witch then found her own daughter's body in the bed and realised to her horror what she had done. And she looked out of the window with her far sight and saw our fair maiden and her sweetheart Roland walking away from the village towards the forest. But the witch owned a pair of 7-league boots. These are wonderful things. If anyone knows where I can get a pair of these, please do let me know. 7-league boots. You put them on your feet, and with every stride, you walk 7 leagues. So the witch was able to overtake our young lovers as they hurried their way through the forest. And when the fair maid and sweetheart Roland saw the witch behind them, the maiden took the wand, and with her own magic, she turned Roland into a lake and turned herself into a duck. And as a duck, she swam around on the lake. And the witch saw the duck and realised it was really our fair maid, and tried to lure the duck to the edge of the pond, but all to no avail. By the time night fell, the witch turned back to her own cottage, and our 2 young lovers simply reverted to their own natural form. But the next day, the witch came to find them again. And our fair maid, and the witch turned the fair maiden into a flower that she placed in the middle of a hedge. And she turned sweetheart Roland into a fiddle player. And the fiddle player began to play and play and play. And he played one of those magical tunes that make people dance and dance and dance. And the witch reached out for the flower in the middle of the hedge and found herself in the middle of the hedge. And there she began to dance to the beautiful strains of the fiddle player. And she danced and she danced. And because she was in the middle of a hedge, the thorns tore at her clothing and tore at her flesh. And she danced all day and she danced all night until she fell into an exhausted heap on the floor. And it was there that she died. So our fair maid reverted from her form of a flower into her own form. And Roland reverted to his own self. And Roland said, "I will go now to my father, and I will arrange for our wedding." So Roland set off, and our fair maid said, "I will wait for you. I will wait here." And she turned herself into a red stone, and as such she waited for him. And she waited, and she waited, and she waited, because when Roland had returned to his own village, he had been lured away from his own sweetheart by another maiden. This must have been a very magical village, because this maiden had some magic arts herself, and she caused Roland to forget everything that had happened, to forget about his true love. And so the wedding that was arranged was for Roland and another woman. Meanwhile, our fair maid turned herself into a flower, and of course a beautiful flower. And a shepherd saw this beautiful flower was so enthralled by it that he picked the flower and took it home and placed it in a wooden chest in his cottage. And then strange things began to happen. When the shepherd got up in the morning ready to take his flock to pasture, he found his little cottage was swept and clean and tidy, and water was already in the house. And when he came home in the evening, he found a fine stew bubbling away. And although this made him very happy, he was a little confused because he never saw anyone. So he went to the village witch, the village wise woman, and she said, "There is magic. There is magic involved somewhere. Get up with the sunrise. Take a white cloth and throw the white cloth over whatever you see moving." So the next day, as the sun rose, the shepherd found that he had thrown a white cloth over the beautiful flower which had climbed up out of the wooden chest. And the enchantment was broken, as standing there in front of him was a beautiful maiden. And she told him all that had happened to her, that she had run away from her stepmother, that her betrothed had abandoned her, and that she had turned herself into a flower. And although the shepherd proposed to her, she said she didn't want to marry him. She wanted to carry on waiting for Roland, her true love. So news reached our flower maiden of Roland's wedding. And it was the tradition in that part of the world that the young women of the village would go to a wedding and would sing. And so our flower maiden followed the other girls of the village to the church where Roland was to be wed. And then it came to her turn to sing. She sang with such a beautiful voice that there was magic in her song, because of course songs do have a kind of magic, don't they? She sang, and Roland, hearing her voice, found that the memories of his love for his true betrothed returned. And so the wedding that was held that day was for Roland and our fair maiden. And so, this is your line. Have you been practicing? Come on, this is your line. This is the bit that you get to say, because, you ready? They lived, come on, happily ever after. And I hope you will too. There are quite a lot of stories about either a violin or a harp which plays so that people dance, whether they choose to or not. And sometimes indeed will carry on dancing until they collapse from exhaustion. But often it is elves who can make such magical music, or sometimes old Nick himself. And of course there are this tradition survived into the American blues songs. So sometimes there are American blues songs about people meeting the devil at the crossroads, and of course the devil is a great fiddle player, you know. He's not all bad. He can make some great music. Anyway, that's a story about magic, about the magic of fiddle playing, the magic of songs, and the enduring power of love. So I hope you liked that. For a Grimm story, it does have a happy ending. Lots of other Brothers Grimm stories. So I do hope to see you all again soon. Take care. And may the magic of music fill your life too.